we all have those moments in life that are just like etched into your memory forever. I got a call from my mom, and she said that they were at the hospital, some testing got done, and it ended up being a brain tumor. Dad is always Superman, right? Your parents are always invincible, like they're your heroes.
You grew up quick. I mean, I think that was something that you didn't have a choice to take that on. That made you the human, the father, the leader you are today. So incredible.
Welcome to the Sinclair Podcast, where we share real-world experiences, wisdom, and the honest struggles of entrepreneurs to help you navigate and scale your business with confidence.
Hey everyone, I got a huge favor to ask. If you're getting value from this podcast, tap that 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple. The more we grow, the more leaders and entrepreneurs we can help. Thank you for being a part of this. Now let's get started.
Darren, buddy, I think I asked you 3 times before you finally agreed, but your story's got to be shared. I appreciate you coming on today. We were chatting before, 12, 13, 14 years we've known each other now.
Yeah.
You haven't changed a damn bit, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful characteristics about you as a human. I had the pleasure of actually getting to know your parents before I even knew you. And this goes back to the Dale Carnegie days, 2004, I think, and just the family values that you guys have. I saw through them, I see through you, and I see how you parent. And again, just one of the many things why I think you're a kick-ass dude.
Thanks so much, man. Pleasure to be here. And I know we chatted a little while ago about getting on here and doing this together. So it's my absolute pleasure. I've been a avid listener and love all the podcasts.
It's like you and my mom, and like there's a few, you're one of the few like.
When you had asked me to come on, I'm like, I don't know, like there's far more qualified people that's been here on the podcast. So
no way.
Anyway,
No
pleasure to be here, and you're also somebody I've always looked up to in terms of how you lead your company, the success you've had over the years, and I love getting out for our lunches to pick your brain of all the life experiences you've been through. So. No, I've definitely appreciate it.
Oh man, likewise.
Awesome.
So, I mean, let's get right into it, and we'll get a chance to talk more about the business. But like, what's one of the biggest things that helped you shape the business to what it is today?
That's a great question. I would say through all the seasons we've had and the kind of some of the trials and tribulations, the one standout thing that, and I'm sure we'll get into the story, was when my mom and dad were running things, a lot of it revolved around them, and which is something to be said for a small family business, that personalized family approach that they gave to all their clients. However, when things kind of went south, I realized that created a whole multitude of challenges when my dad didn't have the ability to work anymore. And when it revolves all around one person, and that person is unable to work, with some pretty extenuating circumstances, that is very difficult for the people who need to come in after. So the biggest change that I made at the beginning, I'm like, okay, if I'm taking over this thing, I'm going to run it a little bit differently, and I'm going to surround myself with a team of people who all have complementing skill sets, so that should something like that ever happen again in the future, we're not going to have to go through that experience again, or that person's not going to have to go through that. So that was a big part of it. Just again, building out a team. We wanted to grow the business, but just kind of getting away from that small, kind of mom and pop shop, I guess you can call it, right? So that was definitely a big tipping point for the business. So
How old were you when you started in the business?
I was 15, actually, maybe even
Probably on a job site even earlier.
Yeah, on a job site earlier. I remember I was 15. I think I might have even been kicking around the job, and certainly the shop and stuff like that before
The government
that.
doesn't know they were paying you
Oh,
at
well,
12. But
no, no, they don't. But I remember I was 15. We were on a job site. Ministry of Labor rolled up, and I don't know if the rules. I'm pretty sure the rules remain the same, that you need to be 16 in order to legally work on a job site. So I did try lying about my age, and then they ID'd me as if I was like buying booze or something like that. And they're like, you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right.
Scram,
So
kid.
yeah, I had to leave, unfortunately, but thankfully, I think that was right around the time of my birthday. So I was legally allowed to work on the site after that. So
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Take me to an early moment as a young boy. You know, mom and dad. It's a family business, right? It's been in for generations. What are some of the fun moments you remember as a little kid being around the business?
Yeah. Going back as early as ooh, probably around like 4, 5, 6. I have this kind of built-in unit in my office that has a lot of my dad's things and just kind of mementos over the years. Like I have his tool belt there. I've got an old like hand drill set that my Opa had. It was like I was looking at the day. It was from the early 1900s, which is crazy.
No way.
So fascinating. But from a young age, we were kind of like introduced to the business so early on. I remember my mom would take me and my siblings at the time to go visit my dad on site, especially like crane day when they were like lifting trusses, because I
Oh,
thought that was,
that's
as a
cool
kid,
as a
it's
kid,
like
yeah.
so
That's
fascinating,
cool for me
right?
still,
Yeah.
by the way, but
Oh, I
yeah.
love it. I still go out certain days to see it, right? It never gets old. So we were introduced to it at a very young age. And so I've always had like this kind of, I guess you could say it's in our blood, and this passion for building. Like I always thought that, what my dad did, what my mom did in the business was so cool, like building houses, taking raw materials and just different work ethics and things like that and efficiencies to build this and have something transform right in front of your eyes just from some basic raw materials is so cool. So
What point did you realize I'm going to go into this business?
that I think that was earlier on as well. I was never the academic type. I was definitely always more the hands-on. I did not get the best marks in school. Left that for some of my other siblings who were much more intelligent than I was. So it was early on that I'm like, I know that I need to be doing. I excel more with like working with my hands and that sort of thing. So I don't. It would be hard to put an age to it, but it would be very early. Only because out of that came that passion of just being able to create and build things. I thought was just so fascinating. So yeah, definitely early on. So
You touched on it a couple points, but if you can share, I mean, take me to the moment when you first found out tragic news about your father.
yeah, so I think we all have those moments in life where there's like standout times, whether it's good times or bad times, that are just like etched into your memory forever. So I remember it was August 12th, I believe. We had just gotten back from a family camping trip. And I remember that I think I was we had just got back. I was speaking to my dad about something, and it was on the Monday. And I think he took the day off, which my dad never missed
Never
work.
happened.
Like, he didn't miss work for anything. There was a sick day, never existed or anything. So he said he was like out shopping, and I'm like, my dad is not shopping,
Yeah.
right? And I remember, and I kind of put it out of my mind, but later that night, it was really late. I think my wife, she was already sleeping. I was out on the couch, and I got a call from my mom, and she said that they were at the hospital. There was some testing that got done, and they think uh, ended up being a brain tumor. I don't know if they knew at the time. And I remember just like that moment, like kind of frozen in time. Like we'll never forget that. And I woke my wife up, and yeah, we spent the next hour or two like just crying on the edge of our bed. And yeah, that was that definitely like rocked us. And my parents did a pretty good job of trying to protect us, that they weren't even sure what was fully happening, but I think they were probably more aware than that they led on to, and knew that like this diagnosis is pretty, pretty serious, and there's no cure for it or anything. So yeah, man.
And it was a really short amount of time that your dad had to live and to share those last few moments with you guys.
Yeah. So it was about 2 weeks from the time of his diagnosis that he didn't have the ability to work anymore, and that was so tough to see. Like, you always your dad is always Superman, right? Your parents
Yeah.
are always invincible. Like um they're your heroes, right? So to have your world kind of turned upside down, and then to see somebody that was able to do everything, right? And my ultimate role model, and that taken away was very difficult. So it's about 2 weeks that he didn't have the mental capacity to work anymore. So it happened so quickly, and it was I think it was a year and a day from the time of his diagnosis to the time he passed. So it was a very, very difficult chapter in life for sure, just for so many reasons. So
Hey everyone, I got a huge favor to ask. If you're getting value from this podcast, tap that 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple. The more we grow, the more leaders and entrepreneurs we can help. Thank you for being a part of this. Now let's get started.
Again, having the pleasure of getting to know you guys as a family. I call it outside in a bit, but the I can only imagine the help of the strength and in belief systems and what you guys stood for, on how that made such an incredibly difficult year somewhat easier to process. What did that year look like for you as a family?
yeah, we definitely made an effort to try and do as much as we could together. Of course, there were limitations with his diagnosis and treatment and everything. Um, Tried spending a lot of time with extended family. A lot of his brothers and sister were um, always present and wanting to help and visit, and that year, I remember, for speaking for me personally, was very difficult. My siblings were uh, living in Toronto and surrounding areas, and they always made an effort to come down and visit as much as possible. And then for me, because I was local, I had spent all my days working during the day, and I would go to visit him in the hospital at night. And part of it was I just wanted to spend time with him, and
Yeah.
didn't want him, my trying to give my mom some relief as well, but also like just trying to ask him questions of work and how do I do this? Because everything that he did leading up to that point, like on the office and the admin side and dealing with clients, quoting and everything, like he was the only guy really doing that. So I had no experience or no teacher or leader or mentor for that. So uh, the transition period was the time frames were quickly moved up from something that was going to be about 5 years that turned into like a matter of like weeks, months. So
Here you are, early 20s. You're what, 20,
I was 24, 25. Yeah.
foreman, labored,
Yeah.
job site learning with a plan, and all of a sudden, like, Darren, you're in charge. You're taking this over.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, what that felt like, through those times. Looking back, what are some of the beautiful moments that you're like, wow, that was so cool. I got to learn that. Like, because you really honed in and said, like, we're going to go all in this time we have. Because that's as incredibly challenging and gut wrenching that is like, you realize, hey, we have limited time. We're going to make the absolute most of it.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that you got to talk to your dad about and like just really pull from his wisdom?
Spending that amount of time with him, but also being able to, initially after his diagnosis, he was in the hospital for a while, and then he was able to get back home, and we got him set up there. But there were, I'm thinking back, there were a few memories. I remember that my dad was he was very, he was very routine oriented, right? So I remember he didn't, again, like I said, he didn't have the mental capacity to work. But I remember my mom and myself. I remember one day we heard all this chattering from upstairs, and there's my dad sitting back at his desk like it was just another day, and like
No way.
calling in like some material orders,
It's
chatting with some of the
back
supply.
at it.
Yeah, like that was as like um difficult as it was, and it's like, he's just creature of habit, right? So it's hard to keep him out of it, right? And I also remember bringing him accompanying me to some job sites and being able to still interact and see the guys and see the clients. um, I think that was important to him, and that was really important to us to feel as though that, or to make him feel as though that he's still involved, he's still the guy, right, behind the
Yeah,
business. So
for sure.
definitely, those were some of the standout memories for sure. A lot of difficult ones, but a lot of beautiful ones, as you said as well. So
Yeah, and you grew up quick. I mean, I think that was something that you didn't have a choice. You took that on. I just something I that made you the human, the father, the leader you are today. So
yeah,
incredible.
thanks, man. I
The
appreciate
and
that.
I think to know what you guys have done as a family, an incredible job to celebrate, the history of the company and the legacy piece. It was the big anniversary. You had what, five? It was the
Yeah, that was about probably 5 years ago, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah, and just I think the beautiful piece for me is just the impact that a relatively small company in Niagara, the impact out of all the relationships from suppliers, the amount of homes you built, like that circle got wider and wider, and the people that continue to celebrate and honor, and as long as to this day, I still tell people it's like I know Darren, I got to meet his father, and like it's such a beautiful piece, and also just watching how you've evolved in the business.
yeah,
Let's talk about custom homes. What is the
yeah,
most rewarding part? You get to build dream homes for people.
yeah. It's a really cool, fun job. I love it. Again, I always envision myself being some form of construction, but I feel it's really special with custom homes because you can kind of let your creativity and
Yeah.
run wild, right? So, standouts for me, I mean, I love being able to meet people, understand their story, their history, their wants and needs, and kind of how that translates into a project, whether it be a new build or a renovation addition. So, um, it is it's a very it can be a very emotional, and it's a very personal, like, journey and process, and I find a lot of the times, like, our projects deviate because it's definitely a reflection of our clients' kind of legacy and their journey up to that point, right? But I love being able to take something, just some initial ideas, just scratch it on a piece of paper, walk them through that process of like, okay, let's translate this into some conceptual designs. Let's play around with this, move things, right? And that goes back and forth. Let's get this now into some actual working drawings that we could use to quote off of, use for permit, and then going through that whole quoting process of exploring the full scope of work, interior finishes, exterior finishes, systems of the home, everything like that, permits, and then obviously the execution of construction. And again, I think that comes from that passion of mine of like kind of building things and being very hands-on, and seeing that visual transformation like occur right in front of your eyes is I don't get to be on site swinging a hammer, which I definitely have some regrets against that at times. But I feel like that's satisfied in other areas of the business now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. And just as your roles evolved over the years,
yeah,
you shared lots of stories over the years about incredible clients and the work that you've done. But you guys aren't for everyone. And at what point do you realize, whether it's in the quoting stage or before you get a shelf on the ground, that it's not a fit for you and maybe not for the client? How do you handle that?
Ye- yeah, that's a great question, Chris. I'm pretty forthcoming with clients at the beginning of giving them like an overview of the process, because I find that the most successful projects is when we stick to our kind of tried and true regimented process in terms of how we progress through this whole process of design, pricing, permits, selections, build, etc. So I'm pretty forthcoming with them about laying that out. And I've found at times that where we've had issues is when people circumvent that, or maybe don't put the faith and trust in us that that they should, with hiring a professional, whether it's us or another custom builder. That's why you're hiring the person, right? And so when it comes to sometimes having to walk away from projects, it could be strictly like a difference in personality. And I tell people, like, listen, we're not the builder for everybody. And again, you could be the best builder, but if there's not that personal connection, it's never going to work, right? Because
Yeah.
um, we look at it as, and I think why how we do well as a business is that we look at formulating a team, and that team is consists primarily of three people out of the gates. It's the clients, the builder, and the designer, right? Those three need to work together. And if there's one weak link there, the project is not going to translate properly, and it's not going to be an enjoyable experience for really anybody. So have had to have those tough conversations with people at the beginning of being like, hey, you know what? No disrespect. I don't feel like our maybe values or vision for this is aligning, but we always try and help people that, and I'll make a recommendation of some others who might be able to help them out. So
Yeah, I think it really takes confidence to have that, but you built yourself that reputation, knowing what you're really good at and maybe what you need to say no to. So I think it's an admirable quality.
yeah, thank you.
What makes a great builder versus a good builder?
So uh, I'll go on a little bit what I was saying just earlier, that obviously the key points that people are looking for in a builder, specifically around a custom builder, is the quality of workmanship. Are they going to be there after to service me? Once that pre-delivery inspection is done and you walk out the door. I always tell the clients it's not goodbye. It's see you soon. Because there's always things that come up after
Sure,
the fact. So
deficiencies.
exactly.
It's inevitable in the
Yep.
process.
And it's going to be like, oh, we try and educate our clients during that process of all the systems of the home, et cetera. But it's a lot of information at once. We arm them with like a little booklet, but oftentimes they're like, this light is blinking or this alarm's going off. Like, what's going on
Yeah.
here? So obviously those are big qualities. Price point, service, timeliness of responses, all those things. But again, I think trying to remove yourself from that kind of typical consumer relationship, and being like, listen, we're going to assist you all the way through this process, and we're going to work as a team. Trying to remove that consumer kind of purchaser exchange out of it, I think is what we do a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's great. The work you do are the best showpieces, right? To walk people through. Um, how do you do that when you don't have a model home? You have your beautiful house that you show. And oftentimes I think you've even gone to some clients saying, hey, do you mind if I just show, we did a cool custom example for you and we've got someone interested. Like, how do you navigate that? Because you're taking something that's, it starts with a few pictures they find online or Instagram or some drawings. So then, $3 million later, it's going to look like this, but
Right.
we're not there yet.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, the internet is a very useful tool, and it could be a dangerous tool at the same time, with sometimes maybe um, setting unrealistic expectations in that. But what we do is, and again, we try and be respectful of all our clients' privacy, but there's a lot of them who have invited us back after and be like, hey, we've had such a great experience with you guys. We're thrilled with the house. We would love for you to be able to use our house as kind of like a showpiece to walk prospective
awesome.
clients through or walk them by. So, and not everybody does. And that's completely understandable, because again, some people don't want strangers walking by their house or through their house specifically, but a lot of them are willing to do that. And the other way in which we kind of start developing and trying to understand what they're going for is, um, house, Pinterest, that sort of thing, like just getting a jump off point in terms of the styling people are after, because there are a number of different designers, architects all throughout the region and surrounding area that all kind of have their own specialties and do different styles better than others. So we'll try and direct the client to who we think is going to be a best fit both personally and who's going to align best with their kind of design vision. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Very cool. You took over the business and, without sharing numbers, because I know you long enough, but I mean, you took the business from here. You took, like, it was incredible growth and scaling over the years. And it's almost like you brought it down a little bit to a different level that really suits you.
Yeah.
Walk me through, some of those years and the growth spurts and, where it was good and maybe where it didn't feel authentic for you or where it needed to change.
Yeah, at the beginning, my kind of vision and for the business, I would say from where it is now is a little bit different. I had a lot of motivation, desire once we kind of got out of that survival period and kind of got our feet planted again. The projects, it was almost like we had to restart the business in a way because uh, when everything happened with my dad, and I know the news spread, we're like, okay, how are we going to deal with this in terms of just people understanding like the cornerstone of the business is no longer here, and how do we take off from that? So it started almost like we had to like rebuild a little bit. That we started out kind of taking a few steps back, doing smaller projects again, and then starting to build back up to the houses, the custom homes. So that was definitely, it was interesting because I give so much credit to people who start something from absolutely nothing. In my particular situation, uh, I was 24, 25 years old, didn't know what I was doing, and I'm like, now I got to run this multi-million dollar business, and I don't know what I'm doing, right? So, and I felt as though I had a lot of imposter syndrome at times, and you know, was ready to throw in the towel so
That's
many
the weight
occasions.
of the
So
world, right?
exactly. So from that, I think once once we were able to get our footing again and saw that, okay, you know what, I think people are starting to realize that we're still around, we're still, we're still based on the same qualities that Homes by Hendricks has always been known for. Um, we started getting back into those custom builds and that, and then started building out the team a little bit and doing bigger, kind of more involved, more detailed projects. So that happened from probably about 2014 is kind of where things started to click again, and kind of just started increasing from there. And certainly during COVID, I mean, COVID was an interesting time for everybody, but everybody was stuck at home and been like, I want to renovate my house, or I want to get
They're
out
looking at their house a lot more going, okay, we got to make these
Yeah,
changes
or
or we got to get out of here.
I need
That's
a
right.
bigger house and I need space away
Yeah,
from my
exactly.
rest
Yeah.
of the family.
We just had a kid, a dog, and yeah, we got to
Yeah.
go.
So COVID definitely, there was like a massive building boom that came out of COVID. So, but all this to say that I think my original intention is I wanted to be one of the biggest home builders in Niagara, the custom home builders specifically, not like a production builder. But as time went on, I started realizing that I'm like, I don't know if that best serves and aligns with our brand and why people are calling us in the first place. I think people always want to be dealing. A lot of people want to deal with the owner of a company, right? So, and the way Homes by Hendricks has always been known for as being that family kind of boutique high end builder. And that's always been the challenge of how do we scale the business and still maintain that? And I feel like it got to a point where I think we lost sight of that a bit. And and I kind of wanted to hit a little bit of a reset button. And also I just wanted a little bit more work-life balance because I feel like everything was kind of advanced to me 10 years earlier. So these thoughts I started having in my mid 30s of like, I want work-life balance. I want time with my kids. They're still young. I want to hang out with them and spend time with my wife. I know some people don't realize that until 40s, maybe even 50s, but fortunate, like all these things kind of aligned. And I took a few steps back and I'm like, you know what, let's get back to the basics and what the company's been always known for. And I gotta say, it's been way funner, way more enjoyable. And I think that just translates into client satisfaction and even the culture of the team and everything now. So
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think, you have to almost experience those realizing what you don't want when you get to a spot to then appreciate, hey, there's a middle ground here, or finding really your spot. And like, again, something I have so much respect for is the decision to say, hey, I need to back down a bit. I remember multiple times where you're just, you can't do anymore and you're doing crazy hours.
Yeah.
And to make that decision for you and your family and your kids, no one ever looks back 20 years and go, shit, I wish I worked more. Like I
Yeah.
really should have
Yeah.
put some more time at the
Yeah.
office and not hung out with my family and kids. So
Yeah.
it's so admirable, and your family's lucky to have that. And I've seen the excitement come back for you, and the love for the business, and like almost like falling back in love with it, which
Yeah.
is so cool, because that excitement's there. Your clients feel it, your teams feel it.
Definitely. Yeah. It's been and I think, as I'm sure you could appreciate, a business owner with a family, that I don't know if there's any perfect answer. I'm always trying to figure out, I'm like, what is the equation in terms of, like, time spent on the business, time spent in the family? And I don't know if there's that necessarily a perfect answer for that, because uh, life and business has different seasons where one is going to demand a little bit more time than the other. But I think as long as and what I try and do is I stay conscious of trying to balance that time in my mind. And I think if that's always in the back of your mind, I think, and you're not beating yourself up over it, because that's easy to do as well, that I think that's like a healthy respect for that having that constant inner dialogue about it.
Yeah, I love the analogy, and it's, whether it's the pendulum or seasons or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, but I don't believe that there's a perfect balance at any given time, and I think it's so true to say, hey, there's this is a big project this quarter that demands a little bit more of Darren the owner, and in maybe this time of year or in slower seasons, is family's going to demand more, or you just make a shift there, and I think that's such a great way of looking at life and business together, is kind of what's the integration, and where's my time needed now versus what feels good.
Yeah, totally.
It's because I don't think there's ever a balance, and I think you're set up for failure if you're trying to find that constant perfect middle ground.
Totally. And again, like, you need to, my wife is such an incredible woman, is such an asset for being that sounding board,
Oh, do you
and yeah. And she's like, you need to, and she sees kind of sometimes where, like, I'm like, you know what, I'm working too much. Like, I feel like a piece of crap, right? And she's like, you got to be kind to yourself. Like, you need to be a little bit nicer to yourself, right? Just, it's
Yeah.
all good. As long as you're having those thoughts, like, and she's so understanding and appreciating of that. So,
It's amazing. You need just the value the right partner brings is
100%.
amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the habits that you've built into your life over the last 5 years or so that have really given you the most value, both personally and as a business owner?
Yeah, I would say from both a personal and professional aspect, this has been a more recent thing that I've kind of adapted, but practicing through the day, like practicing times of just gratitude and appreciation. And whether that's, you have a spiritual belief, it could be anything, right? But being able to recognize, the blessings and the positives in life, and just pausing for a moment, and especially those days where it feels like, it's not a great day. That's been um, a huge component in terms of improving my kind of mental health and well-being. The other thing is that about 5 or so years ago, I because I was often sitting in an office chair, or maybe poking out on site, I'm like, I need to get a bit more active. I'm not swinging a hammer anymore, so I'm not getting that,
Yeah.
day-to-day
Yes,
exercise.
jockey.
Yeah. So, adapting a regular exercise workout routine has been huge, both mentally and physically. Such a great way to relieve stress and just forget about things. There's been times, I go to the gym and I text my coach Miles ahead of time at Iron Performance Center, a little shout out there.
Nice.
And I'm like, you know what, man, I really don't feel like coming in today. And he's like, you know what? And they had this thing, I think there was like a saying that I adopted it from somebody, but they always say, move the dirt. And some days you're moving it with an excavator, some days you're moving it with a shovel, some days you're moving it with a spoon.
Oh, I
So,
love that.
and he's like,
Move
it's
the
a spoon
dirt.
day, right? So,
That's awesome.
but also just, just trying to be a little bit more health conscious around, you know, getting in the required amount of hours of sleep each night, eating a bit healthier, um, drinks in moderation. It's all been huge, kind of improvements I made too, and some of those daily habits to help me a little bit better at work. So
Yeah, good for you. And again, noticeable changes in those areas for you. And that again, for me, it's always been the work between the ears. The great physical benefits are one thing, but the chemicals and just the mind space. I mean, anytime a stress going into a workout or whatever's bugging me,
Yeah.
you finish that up and it's like, oh, what was bugging me again?
yeah, exactly.
I think that's
Exactly.
that's the beauty of it. So
Yeah.
talk to me about what's your style of leadership?
In terms of leadership, I've always been, it's funny because I've never, going back a number of years, I never really envisioned myself as a leader and more of just like, I'd be a business owner at some point, and sometimes I might be a better worker than leader, I consider myself. But I am the type that I want to lead from the front. And what I mean by that is, um, I'm always willing to put in the longer hours, more hard work than the team, because it would be very unreasonable for me to expect out of the team if I'm not willing to do that myself. So definitely leading from the front. Um, I've always tried to be vulnerable, authentic with the team in terms of what are my goals, also what are my struggles, and if we're trying to do something or accomplish something as a business, I always want to communicate that to them and get everybody's buy-in.
Mhm.
So just always having that open dialogue and the open door policy as well. Just always making yourself available. We've got some awesome people on the team now, and I'm like, anything I can do to help you advance in your own career path, and that, like, that's what I want to be doing, right? As much as it's important for me to be working on the business, I want to be working with these people as well to be improving themselves, and whether that career path, if it steers them away from Homes by Hendricks or they stay here, is selfish. I'd be selfish to say I would like to keep them here, but ultimately, just I want what's best for them and what's going to, what they're going to be doing to achieve their goals. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's great.
yeah, thanks.
What's the best book you've ever read from a business standpoint?
Uh, full disclosure and honesty, I don't do a whole lot of reading outside of work.
It's a safe space.
Yeah, I tend to be investing my off time in other things, but I would say that the one that I've really enjoyed was that buy back your time,
Oh,
and
cool.
and
Dan
and
Martell's.
yeah, and that's certainly translated into, when I made some of these recent changes in the business, um, shrinking down a little bit and trying to implement some of the practices within the book there. That was that book was, and I think that was a recommendation from yourself, actually.
Probably.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
big Dan Martell fan.
yeah,
And I had
yeah,
a chance to meet him in 2016. It was on a golf trip actually, and I've watched his career just like skyrocket in scale. And I mean, he's talked about everywhere now. And again, just an honor to have that piece of time with him. But just
yeah,
I'm a huge fan of his work, and he lives it. He's not just a preacher and here's the theory.
yeah,
He's lived it. He's built all the things. So I'm glad that one resonated.
yeah.
I give a lot of those copies.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. No, you've always had some good recommendations, and often when you do that, I'm like, okay, I should probably order this. So
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Or I won't do it. I won't do it often. Do the lack of reading. I'll give you the podcast. So
yeah, perfect.
let's go back to some talk about homes. What are some of the coolest trends you're seeing in the custom build world?
So, like I was saying earlier, I think I might have mentioned earlier that it's nice with custom building. There's no rules. I love seeing different styles that would typically be viewed as independent, and some of those being tastefully meshed together. You know, modern design mixed with like some older world elements, and again a tasteful combination of that. I love seeing a play on styles. So that's also what's so fun about custom building, because there's no rule book you need to follow, right? Obviously, there's parameters around space planning, um, room design, room layout, that sort of thing that you can't really deviate on, but it is fun to see the play on styles. Um, Definitely, the smart home technologies have definitely taken off over the last number of years, and it's interesting to see where that'll go with AI and that sort of thing. From there, introducing like lots of natural materials. I think there was like a point in time where it went, and everything was bland, kind of sterile, like monochromatic, but seeing a trend back to more earthy, warm elements brought into the home. Um, and what else? Seeing a lot of actually arches are coming back. Lots of
Arches. I saw that.
yeah,
Arches.
that's
Beige is back too.
yeah, beige, yeah. All these things, they kind of go full
They're
circle, right?
cyclical. Yeah.
And um, and again, out of COVID, I would say, a lot of more thoughtful space planning in terms of how a house is laid out, in terms of um, now, I mean, it sounds pretty rudimentary, but office spaces, like, there was a time that people went away from that, but now having these designated spots, even wellness spaces for like spas, you know, steam showers, saunas, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Meditation.
Yeah,
Whatever.
all that stuff. So definitely that would be some of the things that I've noticed over the last little bit. So
It'd be really interesting to watch because I mean the trends have been, people are after spending so much time at home and more time with family. I think that shift is, that will never go back, the pendulum. And people are realizing, hey, we are at home more. Maybe we're cooking more. They develop
yeah,
new habits. Maybe they've, got into fitness and they want a home gym. So
yeah,
I'm sure you guys are seeing, all
yeah,
of that
yeah,
get implemented.
lots of home gyms. You know, done all kinds of things like, walk-in wine cellars, walk-in cigar humidors, stuff like that is super cool. Another thing, obviously, it's been around for a little bit, but with a more focus on um, bringing the outdoors in, obviously, with increased glazing, like window sizes, and taking advantage of certain views, sun direction, and that. But it's referred to as biophilic design. So bringing, plant greenery inside the home. So
Oh, cool.
doing, living walls, planter boxes inside the house. So been another kind of thing that's really gotten some traction. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
When you go back over the last decade or so, like, is there one home that really stands out as the piece that you're most proud of, or something that really helped define you and the business?
Yeah, there was two projects in particular, one of which was a longtime client of ours that we've done some work for over the years, and they were building this what was referred to as a boathouse. So this structure was being built into the side of the bank. So there was a whole lot of structural and engineering challenges and design that went into that. And I remember my dad signed up the project. He got all through the quoting, the spec writing, and everything. And that was when he was diagnosed, and I was kind of had to jump in, and all of a sudden it was up to me to try and pull this thing off. And I remember, again, like I was telling you, that I felt like there was some imposter syndrome, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm
Yeah.
24, 25 years old. I'm like, I don't know, I shouldn't be doing this, right? And I was ready to, like I said, throw in the towel. And there's a few breakdowns that night to my wife, but I remember the client saying, it's like, you need to tell me if you're kind of up for it, because, like, we're willing to put the faith and trust in you. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do my best. If I'm going down, I'm gonna go down swinging. So I went,
Wow.
tried to pull this off, and the project turned out incredible. And it is still, kind of a testament to that time, I would say. So it was a really proud moment to be able to pull that project off. So the other one was a unique build that we did that was unconventional in terms of, normal residential construction with wood frame construction. So um, it was uh, it was more of a commercial approach, where it was precast slabs that were used for the floors, and it was a big steel superstructure to hold these giant panels up that this house was designed around, and then
Oh,
just some
cool.
infill framing. And again, that was one of those moments where it was like, I'm a little bit in over my head here, but I feel just with that drive and motivation to pull it off. And I'm like, this is also what the company is known for, doing different things. I'm like, I need to do this, right? And it was a challenging project, but it was so fun at the same time, just because there were every single little step that you had to think about, and you'd have to approaching this build was not the same as approaching a regular wood frame construction build. So that was definitely a standout. It was a lot of fun. So
That's wicked.
yeah.
Tell me if you could sit back and kind of, and maybe you've thought about this, but what's the next 20 years look like for Homes by Hendriks?
I've been doing a lot of thinking about that lately, and what the next little while looks like. I would say that with my kind of focus around really trying to maintain that work-life balance, I don't have any immediate desire to grow or swell this business back up, because again, I feel like I would be doing the brand and reputation a little bit of a disservice to again go back to that older goal that I had of trying to be the biggest home builder. So I think uh, based on the market and workload, I think a priority of mine is we generally try and run a little leaner, meaner, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And again, having that personalized approach where the client knows every single person in the business, they know the roles and responsibility of every single person, they know who to go to for what. Maintaining that size, I think, is going to be important in order to best service our clients and align with what we've been known for. So um, I would say that kind of maintaining the current uh, trajectory of the business is going to be important. But at the same time, there's some other elements that I'm entertaining in terms of maybe some alternative construction methods that we could implement into our builds as well. I've also thought about there's some um, for the affordability aspect, looking at potentially pivoting the business a little bit, maybe starting a different brand to serve the affordability crisis. So that's all things that are rolling around in my brain right now. So
Awesome.
yeah,
I know you're a visionary, so it'll work its way out for
yeah.
sure.
Thanks, man.
It's awesome. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about death metal, shredding guitar. Man, one of my favorite things is when I get a text from you and it's just you with your phone and you're just shredding some incredible death metal.
Well, there's only like there's very 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 select few people to send it to.
Yeah,
So
and
the
I
people
I
that
appreciate the
it.
back and forth Spotify recommendations. But what got you into music and what's it doing for you?
Yeah, I would say that I was like originally set out to be, wanna be like guitar player, but wanna be rock star now builder. So,
Yeah.
but it was funny. Music was not like a huge thing in our family. Like I know my mom played piano growing up. My dad wasn't the most musically inclined. I would say that was not one of his gifts or talents. But I think it started around, I think I was 10 or 11, and I forget what it was that it might have been my cousin. He was picking up the guitar, and we had shared some music tastes and that, and I remember he showed me something, and I was like, that is so cool that you could play that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to do that, right? And so I'm like, I'm gonna take and he let me borrow his like little starter pack. It was like, you get it from like the department store. I think
Yeah.
it was like comes with a little amp that sounds awful. This guitar that was like
Barely keeps it
terrible.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So I think I started playing around with that, and I think I started and quit guitar like probably like 2 or 3 times until it just started to click, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna kind of stick with it. And all through the later elementary years and all through high school and even in college, like I played a lot, and I was like that best. I was with that weird kid in high school that had the long hair and that would just sit against his locker play
Just
guitar.
jamming.
The awkward phase was a little bit longer for me. So,
I love it, man.
but yeah, that's kind of what I've been into. I been kind of in and out of some bands just for fun over the years, and the church my wife and I attend, I'm on their worship team there. So yeah, I don't really do it. It's really just a hobby interest of mine at this point.
You're
So,
downplaying your talent because I'm gonna roll some B-roll on this
oh,
when
okay.
we show it, and it's gonna have
I
you
don't know
just
if people
oh
want
yeah
me
no
shredding
it's
or
gonna be
yourself.
you shredding, but yeah, and one day we will start a band. I
Yeah,
know we keep
we talk
talking about it,
this
but
often. Yeah,
uh,
we do need to do a cover band for
we'll
sure.
get there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Two last questions. One is going back 10 years. What advice would you give to yourself?
There's there would be a whole lot of things I would say to myself, but one of which was be willing to uh, be vulnerable with people and pretend that you don't know everything and have the answer for everything, and being willing to ask for help. I felt as though back then, because I was very young at the time and often would be questioned by people. They're like, you're pretty young to be running this business. I'm like, yeah, you don't need to tell me, right? So
Thanks, I know that.
yeah, yeah. And and I would say that at times I had to feel like I had to put a bit of a mask on to cover for my age. I felt like I need to ensure that I was always had the answer to everything. And probably looking back on that, some people were able to see through that. But I think just being able to tell people like, listen, I don't have the answer for this. I'm learning and I'm learning a lot right now. But I'll certainly get you the answer because I have a team of people around me who are much smarter and experienced than I am. So that would definitely be the standout thing. So in terms of the advice I'd give myself.
Yeah. What about someone that's similar to you, it gets leapfrogged into a position that's maybe feels above their head, whether that's starting their business on their own or getting into a role that's a huge step up in a corporate position? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, perseverance and perseverance is key. There, there's going to be good days and bad days where you think you're going to hit your stride, and then you're going to get knocked down a few pegs, and you question your abilities, your skills, and if you should continue. But I would say that hard work often will just trumps a lot of things. That if you're willing to put in the time and put in the hours, you can break through those barriers, right? I would say also for people who might be starting their business, it's sometimes easy to have all these ideas and come up with this amazing business plan and want to do all these things, but it's very easy to get tripped up over those things and do too many things at once or be too many people or businesses at once. That I think it's critical to compartmentalize those things, come up with a business plan, measure your work, your ideal work input and output, because at the same time it needs to be sustainable for you, and just set those goals that set those benchmarks that, okay, I know that here's my plan. I want to complete, these are the things I want to achieve this year, and here's the timelines for it. I think it's important to just put in that framework, so you're not it's easy to get so caught up in that and doing so many things at once. So
Yeah.
that would be the advice I would have.
Great
So
advice.
yeah.
We could talk for hours. You have such wisdom. As I said earlier, you grew up really fast, and I just think that shows in so many ways, in how you lead, how you live your life. Your dad would be so damn proud of you right now. I know your mom is, and it's an honor to be your friend, man. So I appreciate you sharing your story today.
Thanks.
Thanks for making the time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.